Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Geeks Love Lists. My name is Brendan Lotz, and joining me today, as always, is Louis Monzon.
Hey, guys.
And Robin Lee Chetty.
Howdy.
So, we're approaching the end of the year really rapidly. I, for one, can't actually believe that we are already in December. How are you guys doing? How's the last week been?
Yeah, it's been...
Trying to cope with the heat.
It's kind of like just snuck up on me, to be honest. I can't believe it's already... People already talk about Christmas plans and stuff. I thought we were still in, August.
Yeah, man.
What happened to August?
Yeah, where has the time gone indeed? It really does feel like just yesterday was November 2023, and even just like a couple of hours ago, it was January. But regardless, time marches ever onwards, and that means that we get to record new episodes of Geeks Love Lists. For this week's episode, we wanted to chat a bit about streaming. And while it seems pretty commonplace nowadays, it might surprise you to know that 9 years ago, we didn't really have many options as regards streaming in South Africa. You'll recall that in around September of 2015, we had Showmax launch. There was a lot of hubbub about which streaming platform, or that DStv was going to launch a streaming platform rather, and we got that in the form of Showmax. And since then, the platform has evolved, changed. We now have Showmax 2.0. But shortly after Showmax launched, we had Netflix arrive in South Africa. They launched in like 100 and something countries all at once, and yeah, they've kind of they've improved and increased their market share to a point where they are now the dominant force in the streaming space. But in South Africa, we have a lot of options. We have Prime Video, we have Disney Plus. We, of course, have Netflix and Showmax and many, many others. Things like BritBox, which unfortunately no longer exists. And because there are so many, we wanted to sit down and chat about what we believe are some of the best streaming platforms in South Africa. And that's a really important conversation to have, because in the time that Showmax and Netflix have come to the fore, we've had a lot of other players, as I mentioned, into the market, and these players all offer something different, whether that be 4K streaming, whether that's downloads. Things have just evolved to a point where now you as the customer have the kind of freedom of choice to do what it is you want to do. So for today, we're going to discuss which platforms we think are great, which platforms we prefer subscribing to, and how we use those platforms. And I think one of the first things we need to chat about is one of the perhaps more hotly contested things that people do with their streaming accounts, and that is sharing. So we know that Netflix doesn't really like it when you do family sharing or share your account around. They see that as lost money, really. And they've started to clamp down on account sharing. And we've seen it a bit here in South Africa. I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts and whether you've experienced it. We'll get to that in a minute. But essentially what this account streaming crackdown does is account sharing rather. It prevents you from sharing your account with other people. It adds friction to the login process. And the idea is that it pushes you towards actually subscribing rather than using a family member's account. So I'm curious to hear from you guys. Have you experienced the crackdown on account sharing? Do you share accounts with any family members? Yeah. Open floor.
So I don't mind going first. So yes, we share an account with my folks, and to be honest, and I've obviously with what we've been reading and stuff, you kind of see that Netflix is cracking down on password sharing and stuff, but I think I don't to be honest, I don't think we felt that much. I know the other day what happened was my wife was staying by my parents while I went away to Dubai on a business thing. And she said that to use Netflix on one of the TVs in my parents' place, she had to sign up as a, I don't know exactly what it's called. I think it's a tourist or I'm on holiday kind of account. And apparently all you have to do is you put in your phone number, and it actually, so she told me it worked fine, and she managed to get on the Netflix account, and there wasn't really any issues, which is good to hear, I guess. So I don't know. On my side, at least, I haven't felt that it's been too serious, too much of a doom and gloom thing in terms of Netflix's account sharing.
And yourself, Robin, have you experienced the crackdown on account sharing?
Yeah, so from my side, my family kind of share a Netflix account. But to be honest, it hasn't been an issue for me either. I found a weird workaround. So I have a very old iPad mini. It's 10 years old. And I've recently had to decommission it. But before that, I was able to kind of force my way into the Netflix application because I had almost an outdated version of the app. So it didn't really recognize all the crackdown on password and account sharing. So that was my kind of little workaround. Since I've decommissioned said iPad, I haven't really been able to access Netflix, but at the same time, I haven't really felt the need to. So it hasn't been an issue for me at this stage anyway. That might change when the next season of One Piece comes along, or there's some specific piece of content that I need to stream or want to have a look at on the line.
So I actually have experienced the crackdown on account sharing. So my parents were actually sharing an account with me. It was just easier in my mind to have them just using my account rather than them fussing with it. And about earlier this year, my mom started getting messages that she needed a code to log into my Netflix account. And eventually that became so much friction for her that she just set up her own Netflix account. So I have seen it. I've seen a couple of people, my friends, who have used my account in the past. They've also mentioned that they've noticed that they have to now key in a code in order to log in. So I've absolutely seen this happening, and I think that it's only going to get worse, right? So yeah, it has affected me, and that's ultimately the plan that Netflix has, is that it wants there to be friction when you're signing on, so that you just get your own account. So yeah, I've absolutely seen it.
Yeah, isn't that the strategy, right? That's what they wanted to happen. To make it just a little bit more of an inconvenience. That's all they have to do, and that gets people to create new accounts and pay extra.
Exactly, Louis. And while I get the goal, I understand the goal, and it does work. Netflix itself has said that paid sharing in the US has seen more people joining its platform. I think what streaming platforms are going to run into now, however, is the fact that people don't want to have a subscription to multiple streaming services at this point, right? The fact of the matter is that once you start adding more subscriptions to your monthly bill, it starts to get more expensive. How expensive? Well, thanks to Robin, we have a look at the main streaming services in South Africa and what their costs are. So Netflix is 99 Rand per month. That's for the very basic entry tier. Then you have Showmax, which is the same price at 99 Rand. Apple TV Plus is 125 Rand per month. Amazon Prime Video is the cheapest at 79 Rand per month. And then you have Disney Plus, the most expensive, at 139 Rand per month. And the problem is that once you have all of these, you're paying a lot of money every month. So what I find myself and a lot of people I interact with on a day-to-day basis tend to kind of leapfrog from one streaming service to the next. Have you guys noticed that at all?
I think it kind of feeds into some of the issues we're seeing around the streaming platforms, because the kind of landscape is so fragmented. There's a lot more pressure than there was previously for the streaming platforms to have content that people want to watch all the time. Because if you are being quite intentional about where you want to spend your money, it has to be on a platform that always has content you want to watch. Unfortunately, not every single platform has that. I think we'll discuss it shortly, but I think Netflix has the widest breadth of content, but not necessarily the best quality. I kind of look at what some of my other family members are watching. They really love the Love is Blind kind of series and the kind of 18 shows that really appeals to them, but it doesn't to me. So I would hear somewhere else. So I think what's happening at the moment is because there are so many competitors, it should be breeding, I guess, a better environment for customers. That's not happening because the pricing isn't really where it should be, in my view, especially within the South African context. And when you kind of add to that the fact that not every single platform has the same kind of quality of content, it means that you have to be very selective in terms of what platform you choose to subscribe to.
And Louis, what are your thoughts in this matter?
I think, what you said is true. What ends up happening is people either grab all of them or a few of them, or or they sneak up on you. I think my parents have most of them subscribed, and I'll often be like, but why do you guys even watch shows on Apple TV? And like, yeah, we watch this. But do you even watch anything on Disney Plus? Oh yeah, your little niece watches this. And it's like, I don't know if it's worth getting all of these things subscribed to. A lot of them, but I think it's also like Robin talked about the pressure of the streaming companies themselves to put out content that people want to watch. But I think there's also a lot of pressure on the viewer, on the consumer, to keep up with all these things. You have to watch. Oh, have you not watched the latest Star Wars thing? Have you not watched the latest Loki thing? You guys need to watch this Love Island or whatever on Netflix. And I think as long as there's that kind of pressure to keep up with the latest thing, people will subscribe to multiple. As long as they have the money for it, people will subscribe to the multiple streaming platforms.
So I want to pick up on something that Robin mentioned that I think is very much worth mentioning, and that's that a lot of these streaming platforms have to work really hard to maintain an audience, and that means churning out content, right? So if you look at somebody like Netflix has an ability to just create content so quickly. It's actually astounding how quickly Netflix makes content. If you think about it, we as members of the press, we get an email from Netflix every month showing us what original content is coming to the platform throughout the month. And that list contains pages, and I mean literal pages of content. Right, it's astounding. If you look at the licensed content that they bring to South Africa, it's very minimal. There's usually like a little list at the top with like, oh, here's the licensed content we're bringing. But in terms of their original content, they are just unmatched. And I know that people like Showmax have invested in their original programming. Amazon Prime invests quite a lot, but I don't know whether they can match Netflix. And I think that churn of content is as a result of Netflix trying to make sure that it can maintain users for as long as possible, keep them subscribed, keep them coming back to Netflix, keep them paying that monthly subscription. And I think it does work to a large extent. I don't think that it's sort of a matter of them spraying and praying and it missing most of the time. But it has to be working, right? Because the amount of content that Netflix is producing, and this is just the stuff that's targeted towards South Africa, right? I mean, we don't even see the stuff that's being produced exclusively for the US or the UK. So you got to just imagine how big this media machine is that Netflix has built. Like, I think if you went back as far back, not even as far back as the 90s, and you said to somebody in Hollywood, hey, one day there's going to be a company that is producing like high quality shows and movies every single month, I think they'd laugh at you, right?
And also, like, we don't see, like, because Netflix does local stuff for most of the countries they're in. We don't get to see like their Indonesian stuff or their Malaysian stuff or all the stuff in Korea or all the stuff in their European stuff. Like, we get the stuff that's aimed towards us. So like when you say they're churning out content, I mean, it's a massive multimedia machine.
Yeah, you're so right, Louis. Like, I mean, I can't even imagine how much content they're producing for other countries, right? I mean, you do get to see some of it, like Squid Game, and that sort of stuff, but it's astounding how much content they make. And I think that that's indicative of how competitive this market has become. What do you think, Robin?
So I think, as I mentioned earlier, there is that pressure to ensure that there is something that's viral, trending all the time on Netflix. Probably why they have a kind of almost like a spray and pray kind of approach to their content. So my personal preference kind of leans towards more animated anime stuff, and even I struggle to keep up with kind of niche category within Netflix. They are churning out so much content. So if I think about shows that are of good quality, Stranger Things obviously stands out. Squid Game, I think, as well. But the problem is with those properties, it looks like they get a lot more attention than the quote unquote smaller ones or more niche pieces of content on a platform like Netflix. I read a report recently that they're looking to do an English language kind of spin off or a English language remake of Squid Game for Netflix. That makes no sense to me. I think one of the great things about Squid Game was that it was a original Korean production. And I thought that was really cool. I think Netflix has done a decent job as far as kind of creating a local original content. I'm thinking about stuff like Blood and Water, which is the original series that was made in South Africa. I would rather see more of that kind of content as opposed to the Love is Blind, Love Island, making show stuff. Because one, it doesn't appeal to me, and I think two, it is not to make it sound like the people that are working on the shows aren't putting in effort, but those shows seem easy to do, and maybe that's the reason why they're so successful. Why so much, I guess, effort is put towards marketing and creating those shows. But it feels like Netflix is a bit all over the place at the moment. Yeah, it's just unfortunately, I think the quality has taken a significant dip. I remember when Netflix first came out, only really had a handful of original stuff like House of Cards. I won't talk about Kevin Spacey, and stuff like Orange is the New Black. Really high quality productions, and now it's kind of mutated into real mishmash of a lot of it being really poor content, and there's like maybe one or two outliers that kind of stand out.
Okay, so I've ragged on Netflix a little bit here about churning content out, but the fact of the matter is that a lot of the content that is being produced by streaming platforms is very well received, right? And it does kind of start a global conversation. If we look at things like Stranger Things, whenever that show has a new series out, it just kind of blows up, and people can't stop talking about Stranger Things. They can't stop memeing it. They can't stop using it in TikToks. Like it just goes massively viral globally. If we look at something like Squid Game, right? Like you have these shows that are really high quality, and that's kind of reflected in the recognition from awards bodies in the US. So if we look at like in terms of award-winning shows and movies and just content in general, like Netflix has some massive wins. It holds 46 Emmys, 8 Golden Globes. Disney has 13 Emmys, 5 Golden Globes. This is for the most recent, so 2023-2024 award season. Apple TV Plus, 18 Emmys, 2 Golden Globes. As well as an Academy Award for Children of Deaf Adults, which is Coda. You can watch that on their platform. Amazon Prime Video has 5 Academy Awards, 30 Emmy Awards in total since its existence. And then you have Showmax, which are via HBO. And we're not really counting this as Showmax, just because they are kind of the primary avenue for HBO content in South Africa. But HBO has 47 Emmys and 8 Golden Globes. That's for the 2023-2024 award season. So clearly these platforms are doing something right. Clearly they are doing well enough in order to attract the attention, the positive attention of critics around the world. And while this is great, it can lead to some problems down the line. We kind of see this sort of firing from the hip attitude from streaming platforms, where they'll try something, and if it's not immediately a smash success, then it kind of falls by the wayside. It's cancelled after one season. We look at something like Mindhunters, which was incredibly well received by people, but it didn't really bring in views, I suppose, even though it was wildly popular, and it was cancelled. They say that it was too expensive to make. I don't believe that, but that's just me. But yeah, so clearly these places are doing something right. And I think that chasing that specter of awards does really help in terms of the quality of content. If we look at something like Fallout from Amazon Prime, that was really well received. It's kind of been received a couple of nods for awards, and yeah, it was just really well received by critics. So clearly these organizations are doing something right, and they are definitely getting buy-in from Hollywood. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about the awards that these have won. Do you think that award winning kind of makes you more appealing to customers?
I do think that those numbers are a little bit inflated because of the pandemic. So I remember pre-pandemic, a lot of platforms, Netflix in particular, were campaigning for some of the original films to be acknowledged by Cannes and other kind of film festivals. I think it was The Irishman in particular. There was a huge campaign to kind of get that the award circuit, as it were, and it kind of failed. Then the pandemic happened, and people turned to streaming platforms for original content. I think a lot of streaming platforms have succeeded as a result of that. Obviously, in the years since then, have kind of failed, as we've seen. A lot of tech companies that invested heavily during the pandemic have had to kind of trim back, cut a lot of jobs, unfortunately. And yeah, so I think the reason why those numbers look as good as they do is because of the pandemic. And I think people are so heavily entrenched into their streaming platforms, they aren't looking to other avenues as far as good quality television and movies are concerned.
I think I don't know. I think the problem with these awards is that like for example, Disney owns Fox, and they own all these other brands under them. So like if Fox, for example, Fox made Shogun. Fox produced Shogun, and Shogun was a super high quality show. I gave it almost perfect review score, because it was great. It was really one of the best shows I've watched ever. And I can't wait for the second season, even though they've ran out of material from the book, and that's not a good sign of things to come. But yeah, I mean, is that really Disney Plus who earned that award, or is it the people who made Shogun? You know what I mean? Is that who really should be getting the credit for that? In South Africa, we got Shogun through Disney Plus, so I guess in the sense that if you're looking for good content through which how many awards they got, then I like that's understandable. But what I'm trying to say is like it's it's really not a good metric to kind of gauge which are the best streaming platforms, because they're kind of the net they cast is so wide. You know, the people who make these shows are so like disparate. Um, yeah, some like it's really up to your tastes, I guess. I mean, Showmax via HBO has 47 Emmys, but all of those are from non-locally produced shows. So if you go by this metric, Showmax is the best, has the best quality programming. Clearly, if you're in South Africa. But I mean, can you say that honestly? Does Showmax have the best quality programming when you compare it to overseas companies and stuff? So I guess that's where I stand with that. Even though I know I keep hearing, I don't know if you, I'm sure you guys have heard it too, man. Man, you should watch this show on Showmax. This show on Showmax is so good. I'm sure you guys have been hearing stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, Showmax does have some really good original programming, but again, it's not winning the awards. Right, so let's chat a bit about some of our favorite streaming platforms in South Africa. We've each picked some platforms that we think are worth talking about, and we're going to dive right into that right now. So let's start off with you, Robin. Which streaming platforms do you reckon are the best in South Africa?
So I've picked two options. Well, I guess three. I'll kind of unpack my logic a bit later. But the first platform I chose was Crunchyroll. I know I'm like the anime advocate on the editorial team. But in terms of pricing, it's 40 Rand a month. You essentially get access to almost every single high-profile anime out there. I think there are a few outliers as far as Netflix and Disney Plus are concerned. I have a few originals on their end, but with the help of a VPN, you can pretty much get anything you want on Crunchyroll as far as anime is concerned. Also, like I mentioned, the pricing is really, really good. And just in terms of value for money, I think it's probably the best offering. They're always also making refinements to the UI to ensure that it's kind of working well across different platforms. And they have a great, I guess, community as far as when you're watching a show, you can see kind of all the comments that are made on the show. You can interact with other people that have a similar interest as you, which is not something that other platforms really allow for, at least natively within the app itself. I think it's quite cool. So that's kind of my first pick. My other pick is Showmax. And I also want to throw in Amazon Prime Video there. So as mentioned, Showmax is relatively well priced at around 99 Rand. But again, HBO is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. I kind of look at their library and the amount of really great TV shows in particular are pretty much led by HBO stuff. I think at the moment, really, the show that is getting a lot of buzz at the moment is The Penguin. I watched the first episode of that one, was really, really intrigued, so I'm just going to hold off until the entire season is available on Showmax and then kind of binge it from there. I think also I have to give some credit to Showmax as far as original content is concerned. Thrown a lot of money behind getting locally produced shows up on its platform. I think that's to its credit as well. They are not forgetting about the fact that we have creators locally, and trying to support them to create original content for the platform is always going to be great. And then I need to shout out also Amazon Prime Video. As mentioned, it's also one of the more affordable options available in South Africa. There is no crackdown on sharing, to the best of my knowledge. So there's nothing really to worry about from that perspective. I think also Amazon Prime Video might have some of the best originals at the moment. I'm thinking about stuff like Invincible, The Boys, Fallout. Obviously, there are some misses. Rings of Power has missed the mark heavily. I think not a lot of people got into Wheel of Time. But I think they have a great, I guess, lineup of original content. And unfortunately, the UI isn't as good as I think it should be as far as searchability is concerned, because there actually are a lot of great licensed properties available on Amazon Prime Video to stream as well. So if you are patient enough to search through the entire library, you can find something good to watch pretty much every time you log in. So that's one of the platforms that I need to give a shout out to. So those are my three that I would advise people to go have a look at. Also kind of the three that I personally kind of use on a day-to-day. I would also have mentioned Disney Plus, but I think the pricing is terrible. The UI is difficult to deal with at times. Kind of written multiple stories around the fact that we have the Hotstar version, which is, I guess, a less data intensive version of the application. And again, a lot of FX shows are doing the heavy lifting there. Bear, Shogun, Atlanta, stuff like that. Those are all FX originals, not Disney Plus originals. So yeah, I just wanted to mention Disney Plus too. Those are my picks.
Okay, and Louis, which are your selections for the best streaming platforms in South Africa?
So I guess I have the normie selection. I'm going with Netflix as my best. I will say that it's the one that I've used the most, like compared to the other ones. I have used all of the ones in different times, in different spaces, like all of the ones we mentioned before, and all the ones the big ones we've mentioned. But Netflix is the one I've used the most often. And I think just the convenience of, because for me it's like, okay, they got shows, you got good shows. Most of these have good shows. You can usually find, if you open one of these streaming platforms, you can usually find something to watch. But it's also how easy is it to get into the thing you want to watch. how easy it is to find something that's cool to watch. Like, are you gonna be searching for how long before you find the thing? I think Netflix, with its throw everything at the wall and see what sticks policy that it kind of has going now, you'll usually find something to watch. They kind of want to cover every base out there, whether it's anime, whether it's reality shows, whether it's action series, whether it's the true crime stuff. Because man, they have a lot of true crime stuff. There's a lot of true crime stuff in streaming out there, by the way, and that's a little bit of a segue. I wanna like it's kind of weird that even like the most random murder story out there, they'll cover and they'll make a documentary and they'll stick it on a platform. I mean, we don't have HBO, not HBO rather, but Hulu and all the other ones. But there's a lot of true crime stuff out there. But Netflix is big on that. And with their live shows coming next year, they spent $5 billion to buy WWE Raw, which I can finally watch every week because I don't have DSTV because now I have Netflix. So that's positive for me. I'm as a wrestling fan. But also the UI is probably the best in my experience. Is the fastest. It gets into the shows that you want. The shows that you've previously watched, you can find them quite easily. Also, the search is the easiest to use. You only really have to type in maybe one letter or two, and you'll probably see the show you're looking for on the right side of the screen, or not. And if you don't see the show, it's because doesn't exist on Netflix, on the Netflix that you have. It's also affordable. The 99 rand a month situation is pretty good. Comparatively to the other one. I mean, Showmax is also 99 rand, so I was hoping that Showmax would be a bit cheaper if they really want to compete locally with the situation. Netflix, honestly, for me, it covers a lot of the bases. That's why I guess it's the normiest one. It doesn't. It kind of just stays in a kind of a sweet spot. I don't really have a runner up. But I'll jump on some of the stuff that Robin was saying about Disney Plus, because for me, Disney Plus is the one that I've liked to use the least. It's 140 rand every month for the just for the premium version, or the only version basically. And basically everything I said about Netflix, Disney Plus kind of does, but worse. We have the Hotstar version of Disney Plus, which is so I don't know if I've never used like the American version, but the Hotstar version, it is not good in terms of just convenience and usability. We were talking a little bit about this before we jumped on the call, Brendan and myself. Sometimes you'll be watching a show and the show will just stop in the middle of the episode, and then you have to kind of reload everything, or the next episode doesn't play automatically. I mean, these are things that that Netflix kind of sorted out years and years and years and years ago. Like, why are we still struggling with these kinds of things? Especially when you're supposed to be the most premium of the offerings. Disney Plus, I mean, it looks great. I remember, watching Shogun on Disney Plus. You get like super great streaming. Streaming quality is great, but I mean, then you have to deal with all these issues and a lot of buffering, more than most other streaming. I don't know, maybe it's just me, bad luck. Plus, but my experience with the platform has really been not great, especially in the UI and usability side. On the content side, I do not like I don't know, I don't want to say consumerist, but maybe the McDonaldization of some of my favorite IPs. The stuff they've been doing with Star Wars recently is kind of disappointing. They brought back Hayden Christensen and stuff, and for the Obi-Wan series, and every time I kind of like, you see the announcements of these things, they you get really excited, and then they never quite reach the potential of what they could be. And they spend a lot of money on these shows, and they clearly have talented people working on these things, but it's never quite as good as you want it to be, and you don't really understand why everyone's so excited, because when you watch it, you're just kind of like, man, this is really disappointing. It's just not as grand as you hoped. And then they don't have the stuff with the Acolyte. I'm sure some people enjoyed it. I thought also, it doesn't interest me. It's not for me. A lot of the Marvel stuff too. and I was telling this to Brendan as well. For me, the best content on Disney Plus is the National Geographic library, because they have most of the National Geographic documentaries there, from way back. Like they have the Crocodiles Here Be Dragons documentary from like the 70s or the 80s, or the not the 80s, very old. I think from the early 90s, which is a really good documentary on crocodile. I think it's one of the first documentaries covering the crocodiles during the Great Migration in the Okavango Delta, and them eating all the wildebeest and stuff. And it's really good. And you would never know about these things unless you kind of look for them. But they don't give you these really cool documentaries up. They give you just the stuff they want you to watch. Watch here, consume Marvel stuff. Agatha all along. I'm like, I don't want to watch. I'm not interested in such things. So yeah, I just Disney Plus has always just been kind of disappointing for me. Yeah.
So unintentionally joined the pile on. I agree. Disney Plus is perhaps one of the worst conceived streaming platforms possibly in the world. I think it's worth mentioning that we don't have the full fat Disney Plus that folks in the US have. We have Stars, or Hot Stars, I believe it's called. Anyway, it's just really bad. Discovery on Disney Plus is terrible. They kind of police on what browser you're allowed to stream. That's been fixed somewhat in a bit of areas, but yeah, Disney Plus is just really awful. The quality of content is not very good. Like you mentioned, Louis, it's really not up to snuff, and all it is just watch our original content, watch, and yeah, it misses the mark more often than it hits.
Just to continue the pile on, so I do have a Disney Plus subscription. But when I went to travel overseas, I couldn't access Disney Plus at all. That is because we have the Hotstar version of the app. So I happen to be in the US. But I am a paying customer. I can't access my Disney Plus One because I'm in the US. And the US doesn't have the Hotstar version of the app available in the region. So I couldn't access the content. So I thought I'd be clever and VPN linked to South Africa. And it stopped me from doing that because I'm using a VPN. So I was paying 140 Rand a month. I can't access the content. It just boggles the mind sometimes how these platform owners operate. I understand they want to crack down on VPNs and account sharing and all that stuff. It's fine. But if I'm a paying customer, I should be able to access the content regardless of where I am in the world. Anyway, sorry, I was just ranting a bit.
No, I think that's perfectly reasonable and a perfectly acceptable criticism to have. I think that if you are traveling, you should have access to the content that you paid for, regardless of where you are in the world. Right, my selections for the best streaming platforms. So I've got one that we've already mentioned, or sort of just the pricing of it, and then another which I think is a bit left of field. So my first choice is Apple TV Plus. I think Apple TV Plus is quietly doing things that are really fantastic, and very few people know about it because Apple is really poor at marketing. So Apple TV Plus has a host of Apple originals. So things like Slow Horses with Gary Oldman is absolutely amazing. It's won multiple awards. Gary Oldman has said that he will play the character until he dies if they let him. It's really incredible writing, fantastic cinematography, and that kind of goes for everything that I'm about to mention here. Like, there was a show that just recently wrapped up called Bad Monkey. It's starring Vince Vaughn, and it's Vince Vaughn playing Vince Vaughn. It's just good. Things like Severance, which is getting a second season now. Also fantastic psychological drama, horror. It just brings it all together in such an amazing, incredible way. Then you have stuff like Foundation, which is quite heavy and very, very sci-fi orientated. But again, some really great acting, a great cast, a great script that's being produced there. Then you have, as I mentioned earlier, the Academy Award for Coda, for children of deaf adults. Apple is just really, really producing some fantastic stuff. Granted, a lot of the stuff can be a miss, right? You might not enjoy some of the stuff. Like, for instance, my partner, she loves the Jason Momoa series C, and I'm not the biggest fan, but in the glimpses that I caught of it's pretty decent. You know, there's a good story there. There's some nice lore that's being built out. Like, I think it's a really well produced show, and I think that it does better than the worst Netflix series, right? So yeah, I think that Apple TV Plus is perhaps one of the best streaming platforms for South Africans if you value high quality content, and I highly recommend that you check it out if you are somebody who's looking for something different from Netflix and Showmax and Disney Plus. I really recommend Apple TV Plus. There are some issues. I wouldn't say issues. They're not really that big of an issue, but there are some oddities when you are streaming purely on PC. If you have an Apple TV box, you're going to be fine. If you have an iPhone or Mac or anything Apple based, you're going to be fine. But I have found that streaming through a TV and through a PC can be a bit, or non-Apple supported TV rather, can be a bit iffy. But yeah, I highly recommend checking out Apple TV Plus if you can. Then my second choice, like I said, is a bit left of field, because it's not necessarily about content. It's more about sport. So we've seen a couple of streaming platforms play around with live sport. We have Netflix, which is getting into WWE, and they've had a couple of live sporting events, but F1 TV is the streaming service for Formula One. And I think that if a platform is seriously considering moving its sports streaming online, it should be using F1 TV as the gold standard, and I'll tell you why. For one, it's pretty affordable. It's $5.99 US. So in South Africa, that means that your subscription is going to drift a little bit in terms of how much you pay every month. But it's relatively affordable. For that money, you get access to live races. You get 2 commentary streams, so you can watch the Sky with David Croft and Martin Brundle, or you can watch with Alex Jakes, Jolyon Palmer, James Hinchcliffe, sorry, and a whole bunch of other people. But then you also get some other stuff. So you get to watch all the qualifying sessions, of course, all the free practice, but then you also get access to like podcasts and special shows, analysis. And then beyond that, you also get access to other open wheel racing. So Formula 2, Formula 3, and then of course F1 Academy, which is the women's racing where Formula 1 teams are sponsoring women drivers in F1 Academy. And yeah, you just get a lot of money or a lot of content for your money. You also get things like access to Porsche Cup. So there's a lot of content. But for me, what's great is that the actual streaming experience is wonderful. You literally click what you want to watch and play. If that's a live race, you get fantastic quality, up to 4K, I believe it is. And it looks amazing. There's very few hiccups. You shouldn't notice too many lags or drops or whatever. I have now and then noticed a dip in quality when things are a little bit hectic, especially when I'm kind of browsing Twitter at the same time as I'm watching a race, but that's a me problem, not a platform problem. And yeah, I think it's just, of all the sports streaming that I've used over the last year, F1 TV just does it the best. I've used the likes of like DSTV's DSTV Stream, which is fine, but sometimes the quality is just off, and if the quality is too high and your internet isn't fast enough, even though you have 100 megabit per second line, the quality can dip, and there's buffering, and it's just messy. Even internationally, like places like Channel 4 and Channel 9 in Australia, like their sports streaming is fine. They're literally just taking their broadcast stream and putting it online, so it can't be that bad. But in terms of the experience, I just think F1 TV is better. And even while you're streaming, there's things that you can do. So you can look at live timing pages. You can focus on one driver, listen to just their radio, just watch them go around the track. So there's a lot of features. And I think that something like that and this feature-rich environment is what sports streaming really needs. And yeah, for me at least, I think that F1 TV has become sort of, to my mind, the gold standard in sports streaming. If you look at something like MotoGP, I know that they have their own streaming platform. It's rather expensive, and I don't think it's as good as F1 TV. I stand to be corrected though. I haven't used it in a very long time, but when I did use it, I found it sort of lacking. So yeah, so for me, I think that if we're going to explore sport, which more and more platforms are exploring. I know Showmax has its Premier League subscription where you can only watch Premier League on mobile, but I think we are moving to a point where individual sporting bodies, we saw this with the World Cup in 2023, but individual sporting bodies are starting to realize that, hey, you know what, we could stand to make a fair bit of dough from subscribers if we just put the broadcast right in their hands. So yeah, I'm curious to see what happens, but I do think that if you are looking at building out a sports streaming platform, look at F1 TV, look at the features, look at the technology that they implement, and maybe use that as your sort of watermark for this content moving forward. Otherwise, that just about wraps up everything that we want to discuss today for this episode of Geeks Love Lists. We're curious to know what you think about our choices, and we want to know what you think is the best streaming platform in South Africa at the moment. Let us know on our Facebook or our Twitter page. You'll find that in links in this post and below this video. But yeah, do you guys have anything else you want to add? Robin, anything you want to add in closing?
Only that I think we're probably 6 to 8 months away from some company launching some kind of AI agent or aggregator that will allow you to pull content to one unified platform. So you can pick and choose shows as opposed to pick and choosing kind of streamers themselves. I think we, like you mentioned earlier, are slowly starting to just move cable television onto the internet.
And Louis, anything else you want to add before we wrap it up for today?
I think that a lot of people can listen to this and still going to, go to the high seas, as it were. I think while we don't condone like piracy, I think that it's easier than ever to pirate content, and there are a lot of companies in South Africa that offer pirated content for not much money at all. We recently saw that I think Waka TV, they're getting cracked down by DSTV and stuff. And there's like My Family Cinema and a whole bunch of other ones. I think Brendan, you wrote about one not long ago that keeps getting people keep bringing it up to. Oh, so Waka TV.
Yeah, it was Waka TV, and I still don't understand. Like, people are paying for piracy these days. This makes
Especially because
it makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense when you can really get the stuff for free. Even the pirates are making you pay for the stuff. Like we live in a strange world. Don't pay for pirated content. If you're gonna pirate, pirate it properly. Just Google it, I guess. But yeah, this is the situation we live in right now.
Yeah, not to get an old man, but back in my day when we wanted to pirate content, we just found it for free online. I don't know what this trend is of people paying for pirated content. Like maybe they feel like it's legal because they're paying for it, but ultimately all you're doing is you're paying somebody for stolen content, and when that person ultimately gets scooped up by authorities, you're going to lose access to your content. So yeah. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up from us. From myself, Brendan Lott, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on social media. And we'll see you next time. From Louis Monzon.
Bye, guys.
And from Robin Lee Chetty.
Take care, everyone.
We'll see you next time. Goodbye.